as we've gathered to observe the Kashmir Black Day on this 27th of October 2022 at the Consulate General of Pakistan in New York. We will formally commence the proceedings by the recitation of the Holy Quran, and for that I'll invite Mr. Rabbani.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li-rabbika wanhar inna shaniyaka huwal abtar. Sadaqallahul Azim.
Message from Dr. Arif Alvi, President of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan on Kashmir Black Day, 27th October 2022. The message begins, and I quote: "This year, 27th October, marks the completion of 75 years of illegal occupation by Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir IIOJK. We observe Kashmir Black Day to remember the sacrifices of our Kashmiri brothers and sisters in their just struggle for their right to self-determination. By condemning the ongoing atrocities of Indian occupation forces over the last 7.5 decades. This day, the entire Pakistani nation reaffirms its unwavering support to our Kashmiri brothers and sisters in their just struggle for freedom. Many generations of innocent Kashmiri men, women and children have known nothing but Indian brutality, bloodshed and torture. IIOJK remains under Indian military siege, exacerbated by draconian curbs on fundamental freedoms of the people of the occupied territory. The situation has worsened considerably over the last 3 years with Indians' illegal and unilateral actions of 5th August 2019, which stripped Jammu and Kashmir of its special status under the Indian Constitution. The actions violate the United Nations Security Council resolutions, which stipulate that the final disposition of the state of Jammu and Kashmir would be made in accordance with the will of the people of Kashmir through a fair and impartial plebiscite, to be conducted under the auspices of the United Nations. Today, Jammu and Kashmir has been subjected to unprecedented restrictions on freedom of speech, fake encounters, cordon and search operations, custodial tortures and deaths, enforced disappearances, incarceration of senior Kashmiri leadership and young boys. Use of pellet guns especially targeted the Kashmiri youth, destruction and burning of houses to inflict collective punishment on the Kashmiris, and other methods of subjugation. Over 690 innocent Kashmiris have died in extrajudicial killings at the hands of Indian occupations forces since 5th August 2019. For the last 7 decades, the Jammu and Kashmir dispute has been a battle of hope against overwhelming odds, courage against fear, and sacrifice against tyranny. Our Kashmiri brothers and sisters have displayed exemplary courage and endurance, braving the worst form of persecution. We value the blood of thousands of Kashmiri who have sacrificed their lives for decades in the pursuit of freedom from India's illegal occupation. Kashmiri brothers and sisters will always find Pakistan voicing the cause of the Kashmiri dispute at every available world forum. Pakistan, while demanding the immediate reversal of the Indian government's illegal and unilateral action of 5th August 2019, also calls upon the international community to take practical steps to hold India accountable for its egregious human rights violation in IIOJK and play its part in facilitating a peaceful and just resolution of the long-standing dispute of Jammu and Kashmir in accordance with the relevant Security Council resolutions and the wishes of the Kashmiri people. The message ends unquote. Thank you.
Kashmir Black Day, 27th October 2022. Today, with a heavy heart, we mark yet another Kashmir Black Day. On 27th October 1947, 75 years ago, India forcibly landed its troops in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And she continues to forcibly and illegally occupy this territory ever since. To perpetuate its forcible occupation of the IIOJK, India has amassed more than 900,000 armed troops in the territory. Torture, illegal detentions, implication in fictitious cases, indiscriminate use of force under the impunity of draconian laws, and systemized campaigns to rob the Kashmiris of their distinct cultural and religious identities mark the reality of India's brutal occupation of the occupied territory. The situation has further worsened since India's illegal and unilateral revocation of the special status of IIOJK on 5th August 2019. Around 690 extrajudicial killings of innocent Kashmiris have taken place at the hands of the Indian occupation forces in the last 3 years. Prominent Hurriyat leaders have been detained illegally or placed under house arrest. India is also making reprehensible attempts at bringing about demographic changes in the IIOJK by issuing fake domiciles, changing property laws, gerrymandering electoral districts, creating new seats for Hindu-dominated regions in the state legislature, and adding non-Kashmiri residents to the electoral rolls. Despite all odds, the valiant Kashmiris continue to defy the Indian bayonet by rendering invaluable sacrifices and refusing to accept subjugation as their fate. History is witness to the fact that solemn commitments made by the Government of India to the people of IIOJK, to Pakistan, and to the international community to abide by and implement the relevant Security Council resolutions have been disowned by the occupying powers. History is also witness that India acted insincerely all along and completely reneged on these solemn commitments. The Jammu and Kashmir dispute has been on the United Nations agenda for over 7.5 decades. Pakistan has remained faithful to its commitments to the Kashmiris and has also consistently raised its voice on the continuing grave human rights violation in IIOJK. It has also consistently called upon the international community to assume its role and responsibility with regard to IIOJK, raising our voice against the ongoing Indian atrocities in the occupied territory and demanding an immediate reversal of the Indian government's illegal and unilateral actions of 5th August 2019. The only solution to the Jammu and Kashmir dispute lies in ensuring that the Kashmiris are allowed to exercise their right of self-determination through the democratic process of holding a UN-mandated free and impartial plebiscite as espoused in the relevant UNSC resolutions and as per the wishes of the Kashmiri people. Pakistan's rock-solid support to the Kashmir cause remains as steadfast as ever. Our greatest asset is the national consensus on this core issue. In fact, love for Kashmir and allegiance to this just cause remains an element of fact in every stratum of our society. This was the reason our beloved Qaid referred to Kashmir as Pakistan's jugular vein. It runs in our blood. My message to all Kashmiri brothers and sisters on the somber occasion is simple. Pakistan will always stand by you, no matter what the cost. We are your voice to the world. Our support and solidarity is abiding. We will not rest until you secure your legitimate right to self-determination. Inshallah, that day is not far away. The message ends.
The illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir IIOJK against their will. 75 years ago, on 27th October 1947, India forcibly landed its troops in IIOJK and continues to forcibly and illegally occupy this territory ever since. For over 7 decades, the Jammu and Kashmir dispute has been a battle of hope against overwhelming odds, of courage against fear, and of sacrifice against tyranny. Thousands of innocent Kashmiri men, women, and children have lost their lives at the hands of Indian brutality. We pay rich tributes to all martyrs for their ultimate sacrifice and to their families for their resolve and perseverance. India's intensified campaign to force demographic changes in IIOJK is in full swing since 5th August 2019, when it revoked Article 370 and 35A of its own constitution. That grants special status to IIOJK. The events of the last 3 years have included repressive measures such as outrageous gerrymandering to create Hindu-dominated constituencies in Muslim-majority areas, issuance of millions of fake domicile certificates to non-Kashmiris, new laws on ownership of land and property, and expansion of voter rolls to include non-Kashmiri residents. These undemocratic and illegal measures are in fact direct contradiction and contravention of UN resolutions and the 4th Geneva Convention. They signify nothing but India's malicious campaign to change the distinct Kashmiri identity. With 900,000 troops, IIOJK has become one of the most heavily militarized regions of the world. Nearly 690 Kashmiris have lost their lives in extrajudicial killings since 5th August 2019, including 170 just this year. The true representatives of the Kashmiri people have been arbitrarily detained for years. However, India's intransigence and brutality in the IIOJK cannot continue indefinitely. To this day, India has failed to attain its objective of subjugating the Kashmiri people. Kashmiris have yearned for freedom while confronting the most brutal forms of oppression at the hands of Indian occupation forces. The innumerable sacrifices and resilience of the people of Jammu and Kashmir have thwarted all Indian attempts of coercion and control. The resolute spirit of the people of Kashmir remains intact. 3 successive generations of Kashmiris have waited for the world and the United Nations to deliver. Pakistan calls upon the international community to take practical steps to hold India accountable, and the Indian government must reverse the unilateral and illegal actions of 5th August 2019. It should stop its egregious human rights violations in IIOJK. It should repeal the draconian laws and implement the relevant UN Security Council resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir. I promise my Kashmiri brothers and sisters that the struggle and their sacrifice will not go in vain. The world can no more eschew its responsibility. We owe it to the Kashmiris. The message ends. And may I now invite our audience to please turn their attention to the audiovisual screen.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome all of you to the Consulate General of Pakistan in New York. I'm very grateful that all of you have taken time out of your very busy schedules to join us to commemorate Kashmir Black Day and to express your solidarity with the Kashmiris in IIOJK and to pay homage to the sacrifices of hundreds and thousands of Kashmiris who have paid the ultimate sacrifice of their lives in the quest for realizing their inalienable right of self-determination. I'm very grateful to the youth, and especially to the students who have joined us today. It has been our endeavor from the Consulate General of Pakistan in New York to reach out to the young Pakistani Americans, young Pakistanis and young Americans in order to help them understand the various dimensions of this dispute. I'm very grateful to the Kashmiri leadership and Kashmiri leaders who are here, who have joined us. I know that they have to go to Times Square where a vigil is being held and a protest is going to be made supporting the Kashmiris in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very somber day, and it is a day of reflection for all those people who respect human rights, who believe in international law, who believe in the United Nations resolutions, and who believe in the right of self-determination. Especially for the young in the audience, some of these terms may be new to you because you may not be so engaged with the issue. You may not follow it in your day-to-day life, or you may come across versions of this dispute on the internet which are contrary to the facts of what is actually taking place inside Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So a day which is now 75 years old, today completes 75 years of the commemoration. I wish I could say that we are looking at at a resolution of this dispute in the very near future. I'm afraid that's not where we are right now. Struggle continues. This is a day when the people and government of Pakistan reaffirm their resolve to stand with their Kashmiri brothers and sisters. We have continued to stand with them, we will continue to stand with them, and we will continue to highlight the atrocities, continue to highlight the plight till they are given the right that was promised to them 75 years ago. For those of you who do not know, this was the day when in 1948, the Indian troops occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This was in violation of what the people of Kashmir wanted. They wanted to be with Pakistan on the basis of the principles of independence of the two new nations, Pakistan and India. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And since then has begun the struggle of the Kashmiris, and there have been different phases of this struggle. I wanted you to see the visuals, and I wanted you to understand what's actually happening on ground. There have been, as I said, several phases of this struggle. The United Nations resolutions, as you know, have given Kashmiris the right to decide their fate in accordance with their wishes, but the resolutions remain where they were so many years ago. They have not been implemented. As you can see, and as the documentary also tells you, as the facts on ground tell you, the situation of the Kashmiris has worsened now since August 5th, 2019. And that was a very important and another very dark day in the history of the Kashmiris. And that was the day when their special status of Jammu and Kashmir, as given to them by the Indian Constitution, was also taken away from them. And that has huge implications for the Kashmiris in terms of their legal rights, in terms of their special status. While the rest of the world confronted with the global pandemic, and we were all, wherever we were living in the world, we had to go in lockdowns, and we had to try to protect and save ourselves from this terrible, terrible disease that had overtaken the whole world. The Kashmiris were fighting another kind of battle. They suddenly found themselves even more brutally terrorized than they were before. You should not be very surprised to know that this is Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is the most militarized zone in the world. There are over 900,000 Indian troops. Just for a second, think about the number, 900,000 troops. You have also seen the statistics, the colossal loss of lives, the thousands and thousands of Kashmiris who have died, who have embraced martyrdom, because they will not rest till they get their right to self-determination, till they get their freedom from these atrocities. They will not rest. And Pakistan and people of Pakistan have supported them at each and every stage. During each and every phase of this struggle for freedom, we have stood with them. So since 2019, the situation has even worsened, and you would know by now that a demographic change has been designed for IIO-JK, unfortunately. The idea is to turn the majority into a minority. The idea is to take away whatever rights they had from them, and to make them, to oppress them even more, and to make their lives more difficult, where they do not have the rights and the freedoms that are guaranteed to them, not only as human beings, but which are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which are the rights of every human being that lives on this planet. So that is the unfortunate plight of the Kashmiris right now. You have heard the messages of the President, the Prime Minister, and the Foreign Minister. I will not go over all the details. You have also seen them in the documentary, and speakers before me and the speakers who come after me will also speak in more detail about them, since time is of the essence here. My message to you today is that Kashmir is a red line for all the Pakistanis. And Kashmir is something on which we cannot make any compromise. Till they achieve their right to self-determination, the struggle will continue. And the struggle, as I said, has different phases. My message to you is to be united on this issue, to stand in one, to stand as one, and to speak in one voice when we are talking about Kashmir. There cannot be any compromise on that. There are more than 10 million Pakistanis who live abroad, and there are hundreds and thousands of people of Kashmiri and Pakistani heritage who live outside of Pakistan. So I'm talking of the overseas Pakistanis and Kashmiris because I'm addressing an audience that comprises of them. So in unity lies our strength. We need to commemorate these days. We need to remember the sacrifice. We need to know that this struggle needs to continue. So in unity lies our strength. We must speak with one voice. And there are so many things that we can do, even, and especially I'm talking to the young. There are different ways in which you can be engaged, in which you can help the cause. I'm proposing to you a couple of things. The first and the most important thing is to know your facts. You must be aware of what the situation is. Know your facts. Do not be misled. Have your own independent thought process. You should be able to critically and independently analyze the situation. Know your facts. Do not be misled. As I said, engage. And there are several ways in which you can engage after you have the facts. Even if you are students, even if you are in schools and colleges, there are several avenues through which you can engage. And then act. There are different ways in which you can be practically involved and practically engaged with all of this. You live in a very important city of the world. You live in New York. And this is the headquarters of the United Nations. The United Nations has a historic role in the dispute through its resolutions, through its sessions, through Pakistan's proactive diplomacy. Social media is another tool that you have. There are several, I think all of the human rights organizations of the world have spoken, based on the facts that they have spoken in favor of the Kashmiris. They have documented the atrocities. They have highlighted the situation, as is very obvious from the documentary also that you saw. So know your facts, engage, and also act. There is no dearth of tools that you have in this day and age for doing all of this. Do not underestimate your power. This is the thought that I want to leave you. Do not underestimate your ability to influence things, to be the change makers, to be that important voice which is going to make a difference. You can also talk to your own political leaders, your own elected leaders, your congressmen. You have that power and that strength. So do not underestimate your own ability to be a part of the solution. All of you can definitely make that happen. If we raise our voice in unison, if we speak as one, I'm sure that the day is not very far when we will be able to achieve our objectives, and when we see that Kashmir has been liberated, and we can see that our Kashmiri brethren have the same rights and freedoms that other people have, live on this planet and on this earth, and who deserve all of those rights. As I said, our time is a bit of an issue today because a lot of people have to go to the Times Square. I'm very grateful to everyone. We have a lot of speakers today. I will request everyone to be brief in their remarks, and I want everyone to listen very carefully, because it is in gatherings such as we're having today that we can actually have time to think about these things and to look at the whole situation holistically. I want to thank everyone, especially the leadership from Kashmir, which is here. I want to thank the women. I want to thank young students, all the Kashmiri activists who are here today with us. And I'm very confident, and inshallah, the sacrifices of the Kashmiris will not go in vain, and that day is not very far when they will have their freedom. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we proceed to open our floor for the remarks from our audience for the evening. And the first speaker would be Ms. Karen Fisher, who's joining us remotely. Karen, if you can hear us, this means you're live. Can you hear us? As we all know this, due to paucity of time, we'll keep our remarks short, sir.
I know it's very late and I'll be very brief, but I want to highlight a few important points. Thank you, Aisha Ali and rest of the Consulate for arranging it. I know it's 75 years of Indian occupation, but it was a year after 75, a year after that India went to United Nations with the promise that they will give Kashmiri's right of self-determination, because it was India who went to United Nations, and United Nations promised that they will ultimately give Kashmiri's right of self-determination. Our struggle started right after the creation of India and Pakistan. I think the struggle continued for almost 40-50 years, Kashmiri on the both sides. From Azad Kashmir as well as in Indian side, they were fighting. They were fighting to get freedom. They were fighting for their self-rights. They wanted that Kashmiri should be given the right of self-determination. That was the key point. Struggle continued, but this intensified struggle started in late 90s and 80s, and these all statistics which you are seeing, these are all from last 15 and 18 years. People were dying before that. There were human rights violations. Our leaders were killed. Our kids were killed. But this, what you are seeing, these numbers are in only last 10-15 years. So these numbers are not reflecting 75 years of Kashmiri struggle. So I want everyone to know that this is all in last 10 to 15 years. After Kashmir occupation, they gave the lollipop that they gave Kashmir, Indian occupied Kashmir, a special status, in which they revoked in 2019, and now everyone is talking about. And I think if you are following the news, in last 24 to 48 hours, the Indian Defense Secretary as well as Chief, they have a press conference. Now they are claiming that they want Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan as a part of Kashmir, because they believe that whole Kashmir and Gilgit is a part of India. And now, because what is happening in Pakistan, and we are not united, although there is one issue in Pakistan which everyone, all parties are united, and that issue is Kashmir issues. And I want to thank all the leadership, all parties, all governments, that at least on one issue they are united. So I think what we can do, Aisha Ali very eloquently, that at this stage, we don't see any solution coming, but we cannot just give it up. We should continue to talk about it. We should continue to raise this issue. Our kids are here. We are here. Wherever we get opportunity, we should continue to talk about it and continue to keep this issue alive. And that is the only way we will see the resolution. And the resolution is with the will of Kashmir. The Kashmiri people will ultimately decide. They have a right to decide what they want for their future. Thank you.
It's always amazing to be here, and it's always a constant. Be brief. I heard that. 3,000 years. 3,000 years ago, there was an empire in India. It was called Gupta Empire. which was predominantly Hindus who were ruling. That lasted for about a century and a half. And since then, there have been invaders who have come from all over the world, Central Asia, Afghanistan, who have ruled over the subcontinent as we know it. It was never like this before, as we know it today. India was not India, as we know on the map today. It was scattered 565 plus princely states. So it took the Hindus 3,000 years to get a piece of land which they could call their own, as they call it today, Hindustan or India. So 75 years is nothing in a struggle. It's just the beginning. جو قوم اپنی بقا کی جنگ لڑتی ہے وہ کبھی نہیں ہارتی. Kashmir will be Pakistan, and Pakistan will only be complete when Kashmir is Pakistan. Thank you very much.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. عاشیہ علی صاحبہ، میرے حال میں بیٹھے ہوئے بھائیوں، میرے پاکستانی بہنوں اور بھائیوں اور کشمیری بہنوں اور بھائیوں، اصل میں ٹائم کی قلت کی وجہ سے میں بات تو نہیں کر سکوں گا، لیکن جو مووی آپ نے دکھائی ہے دیکھ کے پھر خاموش رہنا ذرا مشکل ہو جاتا ہے. میں نے جب وہ خوبصورت دریا دیکھے، میں نے جب وہ خوبصورت درخت دیکھے، جب میں نے وہ خوبصورت کھیت دیکھے، میرے بھائیوں اور میری بہنوں، یہ کسی نے نہیں، یہ نیچرل بیوٹی ہے. اے میرے کشمیر، اے میرے کشمیر، تیری غلامی انہی خوبصورتیوں کی وجہ سے ہے. یہ دنیا وہاں کی اس خوبصورت بچے کو اور بیٹی کو اس زمین کے اندر دفن کر کے اس زمین کے اوپر قبضہ کرنا چاہتے ہیں. میں یونائٹڈ نیشن سے یہ بات کہنا چاہتا ہوں کہ ہم ان اپنے بچوں کو، ہم ان اپنی بیٹیوں کو، ہم ان خوبصورت بھائیوں کو اور بہنوں کو اس زمین کے اندر دفن کرتے رہیں گے. اور اے میری ماں دھرتی، میں حلف اٹھا کر تم سے یہ وعدہ کرتا ہوں کہ ایک بھی میری بیٹی، ایک بھی میرا بیٹا کشمیر کے دنیا کے کسی کونے کے اندر زندہ رہا وہ بھی آ کر آپ کے اندر دفن ہو جائے گا، لیکن اس کی حفاظت ہم کرتے رہیں گے. میری پاکستانی بہنیں، میری پاکستانی بھائی، یہ جو حال کے اندر بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں، میں گارنٹی سے یہ بات کہتا ہوں کہ ان کے بھی جذبات یہی ہیں، یہ بھی یہی کچھ کرنا چاہتے ہیں، یہ بھی اپنی قبر وہاں بنانا چاہتے ہیں اور قربانی دینا چاہتے ہیں. میں ظالم دنیا کو، میں ظالم یونائٹڈ نیشن کو، میں ان لوگوں کو یہ بات کہنا چاہتا ہوں کہ یہ ان غریبوں کی آواز کو سنیں، ان معصوموں کی آواز کو سنیں اور اس کشمیر کو، اس کشمیر کے اندر جو ظلم شروع کیا ہوا اس بات بند کریں. میں نریندر مودی تمہیں یہ کہتا ہوں کہ تمہارے RSS کے گنڈے کبھی کشمیر کے اوپر قابض نہیں ہو سکتے. لیکن میں ایک بات کہتے ہوئے میں اجازت چاہتا ہوں کہ کشمیر کے لوگ جو مقبوضہ کشمیر کے اندر 35A اور 370 کو ختم کر کے ہندوستان والوں کو ڈومیسل دیا جا رہا ہے، میں دنیا کے اندر رہنے والے کشمیریوں کو یہ کہہ دینا چاہتا ہوں کہ آپ ڈومیسل کو اپ ڈیٹ کر کے رکھیں. انشاءاللہ وہ وقت آنے والا ہے کہ رائے شماری ہوگی، آپ سے جو وعدہ کیا گیا تھا وہ آپ کو دیا جائے گا اور یہ یونائٹڈ نیشن اور یہ دنیا آپ کو یہ حق دے گی. السلام علیکم.
Ms. Baza Ruhi for her remarks in the evening, please. Ms. Baza Ruhi.
السلام علیکم. بہت شکریہ عائشہ جی، آپ ہمیشہ کشمیر کے لیے، کشمیر کی کاز کے لیے ہمیشہ ہر جگہ موجود ہوتی ہیں. اقوام متحدہ نے جو 1949 میں کشمیریوں کو جو ان کے حق میں فیصلہ کیا تھا، انتہائی افسوس کی بات تو یہ ہے کہ آج تک اس پہ عمل درآمد نہیں ہو سکا. بھارت آج بھی اسی طرح وحشیانہ تشدد کیے جا رہے ہیں. بہت سے نوجوان بچے مرد اور خواتین کی تو بات ہی نہ کریں جن کی عزتیں تار تار کی جا رہی ہیں. بہت سی ایسی خواتین ہیں جن کو یہ بھی نہیں معلوم کہ وہ اپنے آپ کو شادی شدوں میں شمار کریں یا بیوہ لکھیں, کیونکہ ان کو نہیں معلوم کہ ان کے شوہر زندہ ہیں یا شہید کر دیے گئے ہیں. میں اس وقت عالمی برادری کی بے حسی کی سخت مذمت کرنا چاہوں گی جو سارا کچھ دیکھتے ہوئے خاموش ہے. میری دوست کلثوم بٹ جن کا تعلق کشمیر سے ہے, بڑی اچھی کشمیری بھی بولتی ہیں. بچوں کو انہوں نے امریکہ میں, ان کے بچے امریکن بورن ہیں لیکن گھر میں کشمیری بولتے ہیں. تو مجھے ان کا بڑا فخر ہوتا ہے کہ انہوں نے اپنی پہچان نہیں چھوڑی. تو ایک دن انہوں نے مجھے کہا, کہتی ہیں بازا کشمیر اللہ تعالیٰ نے ہم پہ 5 نمازیں فرض کی ہیں. ان کے جو ریلیٹیو ہیں وہ کہتے ہیں کہ ہم دن میں 6 نمازیں پڑھتے ہیں, فجر, ظہر, عصر, مغرب اور عشاء, اور جو چھٹی نماز ہوتی ہے وہ نماز جنازہ ہوتی ہے. کہتی ہیں کوئی دن ایسا نہیں گزرا کہ جس دن کشمیر میں کسی کشمیری کے گھر میں نماز جنازہ نہ ہوئی ہو. تو میں اللہ تعالیٰ سے دعا کرتی ہوں کہ اللہ تعالیٰ کشمیر کو آزاد کرے, کشمیریوں کو آزادی دے. اور اسی کے ساتھ ختم کرتی ہوں. بہت شکریہ.
Honorable Consul General Ashali, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good evening. I am a proud Pakistani Kashmiri and proud board member of the American Pakistani Advocacy Group, also known as APAG. American Pakistani Advocacy Group, APAG, is a social service and advocacy organization. APAG was formed to help our community as assisting them to adjust and thrive in the American system educationally, economically, helping to navigate all types of government and benefits groups. APAG has 4 major focuses. We want our community to be involved in the local politics system and have a seat on the table. We want to promote women and youth empowerment. We want to promote local business and entrepreneurship. We want to promote Pakistani culture to local Americans. Our goal is to build bridges, empower communities by engaging, empowering, and elevating our people. Today we gather here to highlight Kashmir Black Day, the human rights violations that have been occurring to Kashmir since October 26, 1947. While acts of violence are continuing to be committed against our brothers and sisters in Kashmir, we have spoken up. APAG had led efforts to give a voice to the Kashmiri people. APAG has brought the concern to the doorsteps of both local and federal officials, and we will continue to fight for the people of Kashmir. Through advocacy, organizing, and dedication of American Pakistani Advocacy Group, APAG, President Ali Rashid, we are able to unanimously approve February 5th, 2021 as Kashmir Day in New York State Assembly. I want to especially highlight the hard work and commitment by the leader, Ali Rashid, who tirelessly worked on his initiative and was able to make history and provide a tangible thing for Kashmiri community in America and all over the world. I hope that you will continue to consider APAG and Pakistani Consulate as a source and platform for a change as we will continue to support the next generation of Pakistani and Kashmiri advocates. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. محترمہ عائشہ علی صاحبہ, کونسل جنرل پاکستان نیو یارک, اور معزز خواتین و حضرات, آج کی تاریخ یعنی 27 اکتوبر دنیا کی تاریخ میں جب بھی یاد کی جائے گی, ہمیشہ کے لیے ظلم و ستم اور جبر و استبداد کے حوالے سے یاد رکھی جائے گی. جب 27 اکتوبر 1947 میں بھارت نے عالمی قوانین اور اخلاقیات کا جنازہ نکالتے ہوئے ریاست جموں و کشمیر کے ایک بڑے حصے پر غیر قانونی قبضہ کر کے وہاں کے لوگوں کو اپنا غلام بنا دیا تھا, اور آج تک 75 سال گزرنے کے باوجود یہ قبضہ اسی طرح سے برقرار ہے, اور ریاست جموں و کشمیر کے عوام بھارت کی غلامی کے خلاف اپنے حق خود ارادیت کے حصول کے لیے آج بھی بے مثال قربانیاں دے رہی ہیں. ظلمت شب کی یہ تاریک اور طویل جنگ کشمیریوں کے حقوق کے حصول کی جنگ ہے. ہمیں یقین ہے کہ اس شب کی سحر ایک دن اجالا لائے گی اور یہ یوم سیاہ روشن دن میں بدل جائے گا, اور آزادی کا سورج وادی کشمیر کو ایک بار پھر روشن کر دے گا. آج کشمیر لہو لہان ہے، چنار شعلے اگل رہے ہیں، گھر گھر ماتم ہے کشمیریوں کی لاشوں کا۔ آج ہر کشمیری دوشیزہ کی عصمت ہندو وحشی درندوں کے ہاتھوں پامال ہونے کا خوف انہیں سونے نہیں دیتا۔ ماؤں کی آنکھیں وحشت اور خوف کا شکار ہیں کہ کیا پتہ کب ان کی جان و مال اور عزت یہ ہندو فوجی لٹیرے بربریت کا بازار گرم کر کے لوٹ لیں۔ کشمیر کی آزادی کی جنگ نے قیام پاکستان کے وقت ایک متنازع مسئلہ بن کر کشمیریوں کو وہ زخم دیا جو ایسا ناسور بن چکا ہے کہ آج بھی لہو لہو بن کر رس رہا ہے۔ سال ہر سال سے جاری اس جنگ میں جانے کتنے کشمیری شہیدوں کے لہو نے حصول آزادی کی امید کے اس چراغ کو بجھنے نہیں دیا اور نہ ہی مدھم ہونے دیا۔ وادی کشمیر کی ہر صبح ایک امید کا چراغ ہے، آزادی کی تمنا کا چراغ۔ صرف آج کا دن ہی نہیں، وہاں ہر دن غلامی کی زنجیر کا یوم سیاہ ہے۔ وہاں ہر شام تب شام غریبہ میں بدل جاتی ہے جب کسی گھر سے کسی شہید کا جنازہ اٹھتا ہے۔ آخر یہ ماتم کب تک جاری رہے گا؟ سوال تو یہ ہے کہ اقوام متحدہ نے مقبوضہ جموں و کشمیر پر بھارتی قبضے کے خلاف جو قراردادیں منظور کیں ان کا کیا ہوا؟ آج بھی ہم کشمیریوں کو اپنے مستقبل کا فیصلہ اپنی مرضی سے کرنے کا اختیار دینے کے لیے اپنی آوازیں بلند کر رہے ہیں۔ تو آخر اقوام متحدہ کی ان قراردادوں کا کیا ہوا؟ کیا وجہ ہے کہ مودی سرکار آج بھی اپنی آنکھیں اور کان بند کر کے ظلم کا بازار گرم کیے ہوئے ہے؟ البتہ اس حوالے سے ہماری کونسلیٹ، ایمبیسیز، دنیا بھر میں موجود حقوق انسانی کے علمبردار اور پاکستانی کمیونٹی کی ایسی تقاریب جو آج کبھی سیمینار کی صورت میں اور کبھی کشمیریوں سے یکجہتی کے اظہار کی کوششوں میں مصروف ہیں، لاجواب ہیں۔ آج یہاں مجھے اس تقریب میں کشمیر کے ساتھ ہونے والی زیادتیوں اور ظلم ستم پر بات کرنے کا جب موقع ملا تو میری کشمیری بہن بھائیوں سے اپنے رشتے اور ان کے ساتھ ہونے والی ناانصافیوں کا دل سے یہی اظہار ہے کہ ہم اس ظلم کے خلاف ہمیشہ اپنی آواز کو بلند کرتے رہیں گے اور کبھی اپنے کشمیری بہن بھائیوں کو اکیلا نہیں چھوڑیں گے۔ حقیقت تو یہ ہے کہ سامنے کرسی پر بیٹھ کر یا پھر اپنے کسی ٹی وی پروگرام میں یا پھر اقوام متحدہ کے سامنے ہونے والی کسی بھی ریلی میں ہر جگہ پر اپنی ذمہ داری سمجھ کر موجود رہنے کی کوشش کرتی ہوں۔ اور آج بھی اس یوم سیاہ میں جتنے لوگ اس ایوان میں موجود ہیں، کونسلیٹ میں موجود ہیں، سب اپنا اپنا حصہ یہاں اس لیے ڈال رہے ہیں کہ یہ ان کی ذمہ داری ہے کہ آج وقت کی ضرورت ہے کہ ہم اپنے کشمیری بہن بھائیوں کا ساتھ دیں۔ ہمارا وعدہ ہے کشمیری بہن بھائیوں سے کہ آپ تنہا نہیں ہیں۔ دنیا بھر میں اور پاکستان میں پاکستان کا بچہ بچہ آپ کی اس جنگ میں آپ کے ساتھ شامل ہے اور ہمیشہ یہی کہتا ہے کہ جو ضرورت پڑی تو ہم دیں گے لہو کا تیل چراغوں میں ڈالنے کے لیے، کیونکہ یہ ناانصافی اور ظلم کی جنگ ہے، یہ حق اور باطل کی جنگ ہے۔ اے ہمارے مسلمان کشمیری بہن بھائیوں، انشاءاللہ وہ دن دور نہیں کہ کشمیر ان کا آزاد وطن ہوگا جہاں وہ اپنی مرضی کی زندگی گزاریں گے، جہاں پھر شادمانی کے گیت ہوں گے اور پرندے خوشی سے چہچہائیں گے اور مسجدوں سے حکم اذاں لا الہ الا اللہ گونجے گی۔ بس آج ضرورت ہے تو اس بات کی کہ ہم مسلمان دین حق کے داعی بن کر امت مسلمہ کی پاسداری کریں اور کشمیر کی اس حق خود ارادیت کی جنگ میں ہر پلیٹ فارم پر اپنی آواز بلند کریں اور بھرپور کردار ادا کریں اور بتا دیں کہ ہمارے کشمیری بہن بھائیوں کو اس جنگ میں ہم کبھی اکیلا نہیں چھوڑیں گے اور ہمیشہ ان کے ساتھ رہیں گے۔ یہ شعلہ نہ دب جائے، یہ آگ نہ سو جائے، پھر سامنے منزل ہے ایسا نہ ہو کھو جائے، ہے وقت یہی یارو جو ہونا ہے وہ ہو جائے، کشمیر کی وادی میں لہرا کے رہو پرچم، ہر جابر و ظالم کا کرتے ہی چلو سر خم، اس وادی پرخوں سے اٹھے گا دھواں کب تک، محکومی گلشن پر روئے گا سما کب تک، محروم نوا ہوگی غنچوں کی زباں کب تک، ہر پھول ہے فریادی آنکھوں میں لیے شبنم، کشمیر کی وادی میں لہرا کے رہو پرچم، دیکھا نہیں جاتا اب مظلوم کا یہ عالم، کشمیر کی وادی میں لہرا کے رہو پرچم، ان جنگ پرستوں سے ہے سارا جہاں برہم، इन जंग परस्तों से है सारा जहां बरहम, कश्मीर की वादी में लहरा के रहो परचम। हमारा वादा है कि कश्मीर वादी जन्नत नज़ीर न कभी किसी काफिर को मिली है न मिलेगी। कश्मीर की आज़ादी तक जंग रहेगी। बहुत शुक्रिया।
Assalamu alaikum. Honorable Consul General, staff, or Moses Mehmano. I was born and raised in Lahore, but at the age of 21, I had the chance to fight physically in the action in Chamjodiya in Indo-Pakistan War 1971. And I'm a very proud veteran that I was wounded in the war and lost a limb. And my state honored me with a decoration, which I'm proud of. If given a chance, inshallah, if called upon, once, twice, thrice, as many times in my life, I'll go back and fight for the liberation of Kashmir. We got together here today to remember the atrocities of last 75 years by the ferocious Indian Army and the Indian government in the valley of Kashmir. I have served in Kashmir, and from the hills, when we used to be in eyeball to eyeball situation with the Indian Army, you cannot imagine what used to go on in our hearts, seeing that place occupied by those Indian soldiers. Trust me, these atrocities have fueled the passion that we have to get Kashmir liberated as soon as possible. Kashmir cause will never die. It may be, as my brother officer said, 75 years is nothing. It takes time for the struggles. And Kashmir and Kashmiris, we are there, and inshallah, this struggle is going to bring the fruit of independence, inshallah, and Kashmir will be Azad one day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.